What's up, everyone? Schuyler Callihan here with another episode of Between Eers. That is my co-host, Christopher Hall. It is time to get into our keys to the game, how West Virginia beats Pitt in the Backyard Brawl, the 2024 version. Pitt coming off a pretty, I don't know if I'd say impressive, but I guess it's kind of impressive when you're down 27-6 at the half and you come back to win. You shut Cincinnati out in the second half. But this is I don't know. I don't really have a good read on this Pitt team yet. I'm really going to dive into my research here actually after this episode, but this is more for Chris. He's going to give his keys to the game here and explain what the Mountaineers need to do. I'll chip in here and there, but let's start on let's go offense first here, Chris. So last week against Albany, Mountaineers ripped out to a 21-0 lead. They look like, as they should against an FCS opponent. They were humming along, had a little bit of a lull there, but then they kind of got back into shape and were able to finish things off strong. Garrett Green looked good, and he should look good against Albany. But it's not just the stats that I'm looking at; it's the way that he's completing some of these passes, the placement of the ball, his footwork. He just looked a lot better on the run throwing the football than he did last year. We didn't see a ton of that in the Penn State game. I thought we saw a hint of that last week. I think there's some encouraging signs there. Obviously, the running game got back to the way it has been for the past couple of years now, running for, what was it, 300 some yards against the Great Danes. So offensively, you feel like you're starting to kind of put everything together heading into this brawl.
Yeah, you saw them getting a little bit of rhythm, and they were running a very vanilla offense. So to me, that's very promising. Really, the key to the offense this week is two things: pass protection. Pitt already has 8 sacks on the season. We know Narduzzi always puts up a formidable defense. Always has good pass rushers. Always has a good defensive line. So right up front, offense has to win the day. They won it last year. I mean, they just beat the ever loving crap out of those guys last year. Like the score may not have reflected how bad they dominated them up front, and a lot of that just had to do with Garrett Green going out after the sixth play of the game, putting Nico in, not having anyone behind Nico ready, so playing it safe offensively. But I mean, I think Zach Frazier had 14 knockdowns last year. Like he was just throwing Pitt defenders around. It was pretty comical to watch. So they need to keep that going this season. But again, they got a little bit better up front. And again, Pitt's defense is always good. And kind of on that note, they're still going to get some pressure on him. And that you kind of touched on it already. Garrett being able to throw on the run. As long as he doesn't try to force anything, I thought his decision making was pretty good against Albany. Know when to tuck it and run, all the good stuff that he does with his legs when he gets upfield. I think that's really one of the important keys to this is like keeping the play alive, knowing when to run, and knowing when to just let your guys have a little bit more time to get separation and get the ball downfield. I think that's the bigger key. I know I kind of harp on the receivers a lot. Cole Taylor, his touchdown, absorb the contact, got in the end zone. Need to see something like that from the receivers. Need to see a big play from the receiver, from a receiver. Make a big play. Make a guy miss. Get upfield for an explosive play. So seeing something like that in the pass game, and not to be cliche, but you want to obviously establish a running game as well. CJ looks so much better this year. Looked a lot better against Albany. Wasn't hesitant. Again, I understand Penn State's defense is good, and they're going to stop the run. But I think a lot of that really was just on West Virginia getting happy feet in the backfield. So if he can continue to run downhill, same with Jaheim, protect the ball. I know he kind of got criticized. To me, he had the ball high and tight. I give a lot more credit to Albany on that play, the way they were able to rip that out than it was on Jaheim. But again, you can't let that happen. He is only a sophomore, but you're expected to carry a big load on this offense. So cliche, protect the ball, but I think at the end of the day, it's surprisingly, it's going to come down to quarterback play and Garrett Green's decision making on whether he tucks it and runs or gives his receivers an opportunity to create separation to make a play downfield. I think that'll be one of the bigger keys within the offense.
CJ has, I'm glad you brought that up. And these last 2 years against Pitt, CJ's just gone off against this defense. I mean, he's run for, and I kind of forgot about it because I know the freshman or his freshman year, He bursted out of nowhere, had 125 yards on like 7 carries. He had a block punt in that game. He just had a tremendous debut. And I kind of forgot, like, I knew he scored the touchdown last year, but I think it was just because they ran the ball so darn much. You just kind of forgot that his numbers were pretty good there, too. He ran for 227 yards total in the last 2 backyard brawls. Don't know if that's going to continue, but you would have to think that him getting going or him to get him going early is going to be key because you start hammering up the middle in between the tackles with CJ. Obviously, allows the defense to kind of get worn down a little bit. Then you throw in Jaheim White for a little change of pace. Garrett Green can run the ball, and then all of a sudden you're hitting them over the top. It just feels like West Virginia has more for this backyard brawl than they did in the last couple of years, obviously because of the quarterback position. Garrett wasn't there for much of the game last year. 2 years ago, they really didn't know what they had at running back in CJ Donaldson. They were still trying to figure things out with JT Daniels at the time. So this feels like the most complete the offense has felt going into the brawl. Thoughts on that, and how do you feel like the passing game will look this year compared to what it could have looked like a year ago?
Probably a lot better. I mean, even if you go back 2 years ago, the passing game was good against Pitt. Their big play um, that got them the lead. The kid, Devonshire was beat bad. It just went through Bryce Ford
Oh,
Wheaton's
by like
hands
7 yards.
and went into his hands downfield. Like it is what it is. Again, talked about it with the bad luck West Virginia has had over the years and previous episode. It just kind of is what it is. It just kind of seemed what it happens in some of those crazy games West Virginia's been in the last couple of years. That they just didn't have any luck, but you didn't need luck if you just made the routine catch, right? So offensively, they've done fine against West Virginia. Again, they didn't get to open the offense last year because Green got hurt. No one behind Nico. You don't want to get him hurt. They didn't need to because they just dominated them on both sides of the ball. Like that was 20 years ago. Everyone was talking about what a dominating win that was. But since
Yeah.
the air raid offenses of like, oh goodness, it's been a while now, 5, 6 years ago, now we're averaging 40, 50 points. It doesn't seem like a dominating win in today's times, but it was really a dominating win. So I think offensively they're fine. It just goes back to can they protect Garrett Green? And you feel good about it because Garrett's been, I don't want to say Houdini in the backfield, but he's been able to escape pressure a lot.
Well, and
So
they
they did,
they blocked up 2 really good pass rushers in week 1. Like, Garrett
right.
wasn't really touched.
Yeah. So I still think it's a key. There's more familiarity between these programs now. I think this is year 3
Yeah.
between the 3 of them. So Pitt struggled to keep their talent, but they continue to bring defensive guys in because of Narduzzi's pedigree, because of his background, what he's been able to do to get guys in the league, to get them to the next level. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge for the offense, but I'm more comfortable with offense against Pitt, far more comfortable with the offense against Pitt than I was against Penn State. Penn State was a great challenge. And I think that really, even though as bad as they looked against Penn State, and I'm pretty sure I called Garrett Green's quarterback play abysmal against Penn State, it won't be like Penn State, not at all. They really haven't got to show, they never really got to utilize their offense against Penn State because they never got anything going. You got to
Yeah.
see a little touch of it against Albany, still vanilla offense. Probably doesn't look vanilla when you're throwing it downfield, but those are just basic plays. But man, when you got a guy like Cole Taylor who can work the middle of the field like that, and as long as Garrett has his timing right, like that's going to be a problem for for Pitt. So it'll definitely open up the running game. I think the biggest concern is nothing goofy like against Penn State where you have the drop snaps. Don't fumble the ball after the explosive play. I think that's the biggest concern. The talent is there. I think the receivers are starting to get more comfortable. We saw it against Albany. I understand it's lesser talent, but again, they need to make an explosive play downfield. They're going to have to win some 50-50 balls, right? Saw Justin Robinson get a little bit of work last week. That was definitely encouraging. So they've got pieces. You just want to see these guys gel a little bit more before Kansas, because to me, Kansas is definitely the bigger game than Pitt. I understand Pitt's the rivalry, but as far as matchups concerned, you got to get that
The one
offense
that
ready
really
against
counts.
Kansas. Yes, you got to get that offense ready against Kansas because their offense can explode. they're breaking in a new offensive coordinator as well with Jalen Daniels. Like they're going to be explosive. They've shown that they can be explosive a couple years ago when they were in Morgantown. That's your biggest concern is what how many points can the offense score? Because we talk, I know we're going to switch to defense, but the defense still hasn't gotten their feet under them yet. Of course, they're doing a lot of things. They're not getting to do everything yet because they're still filling out everybody. Like AB's moving around still. Like once you find a little bit of stability of what you want to do in the secondary, you'll start to see the production there. So again, so much of this right now is a lot of the responsibility, a lot of the pressure to me is on the offense right now because you knew going into the season, defense was going to struggle early. As long as they don't try to make plays like they did against Penn State, try not to make them miss in the backfield, just give what they give you. They're going to be fine. They're going to put up plenty of points.
And the thing too with the offense is, I mean, you kind of talked about it with it being a little vanilla. Like they really haven't dressed things up. Like they did all the window dressing and stuff last year. What it really started was that Houston game where it was just like guys running all every which way pre-snap. You had guys whipping around the backfield doing that little merry-go-round type
Orbit
motion and just
orbit
kind of
motion.
yeah, and just made it, a bunch of eye candy. They really haven't done that yet. We know they're going to do it. It's a matter of when. I think
They
it's
did
gonna be
some
this week.
against Penn State, and
Yeah,
to me, you're trying to get everything you want against Penn State, but again, it goes back to not having a preseason, right? Like you
yeah.
haven't got into a rhythm yet this season.
And you didn't wanna do
Um,
that the first year center, technical first year center.
right. So, and that's why they had some, Neil admitted like they had some issues with snap. They had to like calm everything down and get a little bit more basic with the offense, and that ended up hurting them because they don't have the talent as of
Window
now
straight up,
to
yeah.
win those matches straight up. So getting their mojo going a little bit, getting everyone a touchdown, like that's huge. Everyone's confidence is built up. They feel good, and that's going to bode well going into the Pitt game. So I it, I have no doubts Garrett Green is going to make plays. I, I'm not trying to put all responsibility on him, but every quarterback makes the offense go, and he's going to have a tough test against that defensive line. The offensive line, I'm not concerned, but there's going to be some guys among that defensive line that might be playing on Sundays in the future. So
Yep.
it is going to be a good test. Nardee's is a very like I don't know if he's head coach material. Of course, they have a lot of other things going on at Pitt. Obviously, they just lost their AD. There's multiple speculations, but if you're familiar with Pitt, and Heather Light, she was in the same background as Shane Lyons, which was compliance in the NCAA and was hesitant to NIL. So there's going to be big changes at Pitt. So that series that could get extended and maybe replace Alabama. I think Pitt's schedule's done, but after those 3 years, like that series is probably going to continue. And if they fix their NIL, this could be a really competitive series in the future. So
Yeah.
it makes it fun. Like, yeah, you always want Pitt to lose, but you want it to be like, okay, well, if you got your best,
You want them at
we
least be
got our best.
competitive and good,
You got
like,
your
make it
best, we got
worth
your
something.
best. The bragging rights are a little
Yeah.
better, right? So, but they've been, again, Narduzzi's still been able to bring in guys because of his pedigree. So they've got guys over there. Like it's not like they don't have playmakers on the defense, and they've got some things cooking on the offense. So again, to me, offense, you've got to score points. You've got to be explosive downfield and make that quarterback who's only going to be entering his third game feel that pressure. Make him feel. Now he responded to the pressure, but Cincinnati didn't. They played conservative last week and allowed them to get into the game. And once he got in the rhythm of smoking, man, they started rolling. Don't allow that to happen.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and flip it over to that side of the ball. Eli Holstein, transfer quarterback, comes in. They had a QB competition there between him and Nate Yarnell. He wins the job kind of last second. They really
And
didn't
it
even
was
announce
surprising because
anything.
everyone thought
Yeah,
Yarnell was going to be the starting quarterback. The kid that they've
yeah.
got is pretty good.
And,
He's a
and
good
I
quarterback.
mean, you look at his numbers through these first couple of games: 66% completion, 6 to 2 touchdown interception ratio. I mean, yeah, I mean he's been sharp. But the really the biggest question, at least entering the season, was is Pitt going to be able to run the football because their starting running back is out for the season, and then all of a sudden here comes Desmond Reed, who's only run for what a measly 293 yards, 8.9 yards per carry in these first two games against Kent State and Cincinnati. He's small, but he's mighty, and like Jordan Leslie said, he kind of reminds you a little bit of Deuce Vaughn. Heck, maybe in some instances, kind of a little reminiscent of Jaheim White. So he's going to be a tough find. I feel like even though that Pitt's going to want to spread things out and throw the ball, stopping Desmond Reed is really going to be the key. Do you disagree there, or what do you think is the main key for West Virginia's defense in this game?
Uh, it, they did a good job of it against Albany of producing third and longs, but they did not get a good job of getting off the field in those situations. And that's going to be where the key lies. I think they can stop the run. Obviously, we got to win the line of scrimmage, right? Let's stay away from the cliches.
Yeah.
You got to stop the run game. But when you get them in third and longs, you got to get off the field. And it goes back to getting pressure on the quarterback. Only one sack against Albany, and that is concerning. I had much more optimism with the defensive front, that front seven, front eight, than I did than I do now. There's a big concern up front. Yes, they were able to apply some pressure, but only bringing down the quarterback once against Albany, you should have been more dominant up front. So I think that's the biggest concern because Pitt offensive line, again, they bring, like kind of like West Virginia, right? Like if they had when they had luck with the NIL, is because they had some big West Virginia boys that were loyal to the program, wanted to play for West Virginia. They weren't going anywhere. Of course, offensive linemen really aren't a hot commodity in the NIL. Yes, Zach Frazier got an offer from Alabama. I'm sure Watmon was reached out to. He's probably going to be a first round draft pick. So yeah, there are those guys. But Pitt's been able to do the same thing with Western PA guys, Ohio guys as well, where they've been able to bring these big bodies. So it's going to be a big test for them up front again, just like it was against Penn State. I'm not saying that I'm not equating their offensive line to Penn State, but when you're not even getting pressure enough pressure on against Albany, where you only get one sack, that's a huge concern going into this game, especially on the back end where guys are still trying to learn to communicate with each other, still trying to learn how to play with each other. You got to give them a little bit of a break and add some pressure. If the guy's going to, no matter who the quarterback is, if you give them enough time, they're going to find an open receiver. So there's got to be some pressure up front. Got to disguise the blitzes a little bit better and not get antsy and start showing where you're coming from. Because if you go back and look at the tape against Penn State, even against Albany, they were able to pick up the blitz. And there's no one winning those one-on-one matchups up front like you want from Sean Martin. TJ Jackson was a little bit disruptive, but I think this is a game for Sean Martin where he's got to come in and show his presence on the field. Like get back there, make a play, knock the ball out of the quarterback's hands, do something, get your hands up front, knock the ball down up front. That will start to get in the quarterback's hands. So up front, they got to start winning those battles up front. Make sure you continue to contain the running game. Penn State had kind of a field day in the running game. Of course, it's a little bit different, but this Desmond Reed kid can be explosive. He can be make huge plays. So again, there's got to be focused on the running, but I think they can get them in third down long, but you can't let them continue to keep the drive alive on third and long situations.
No, I mean that's the thing, especially with this offense now that they're going to. It's night and day compared to what they're used to running. I mean, they're going to go spread out. They're going to go up tempo. That's to me kind of the biggest concern I would say going into this is I mean, is the tempo going to be a huge problem for this defense? They haven't had to go up against an offense like this yet. Penn State's a very pro style team. Slow it down, huddle it up, snap the ball with 3 seconds on the play clock, do it all over again, rinse and repeat, slowly, slowly, slowly.
Yeah, but they're used to this in the
Albany,
Big 12. There's offenses that do it in the Big 12, so
they
it's not
are,
like they're going to be
but
stunned by it. The only concern is, again, the secondary communication and getting it in and having those guys understand what they're going to do. That's going to be the concern as far as
right.
speeding up
The,
tempo
the,
offense.
the tempo, the question is again, like we talked about before, like you have so many first year guys here. Josiah Trotter, yeah, he's seen it on the sidelines, he's seen it on tape. He hasn't seen it up close and in person. Neither has Garnett Hollis. He played in the Big Ten last year. Jaheim Joseph played in the Big Ten. KK Tarnu, Jacksonville State. Like there's a lot of new guys coming from in this defense. Reed Carrico, Big Ten guy. They haven't seen this type of up tempo before. Now maybe they have in a couple of occasions, but this is their first time facing it in this defense, in this scheme. So who knows? I don't think alignment has really been an issue through the first two games. It's really just been more post snap stuff in terms of what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to be. But it can definitely cause some headaches. It can cause some jitteriness and whatever you want to call it. But that is to me is the number one thing. If you can get them behind the sticks then it allows you to kind of slow things down on that side of the ball because you're allowed to sub. Pitt's not going to be subbing like crazy when they're behind the sticks. They're going to be, huddling up trying to figure things out. So get them behind the sticks, I think, is a great point in this one. Anything else for the defense?
Yeah, I'll say because they just stopped the running game. Because if they start getting the running game going, that's going to be a huge problem.
Yeah.
Then it will definitely open up the passing game. But you can't throw all your eggs in the running game. So it is one of it's reflecting more of a Big 12 offense. We don't, Cincinnati wasn't good last year. Don't really know how good they are this year. Kent State's not good. So how good is this Pitt team? How good is their
We don't know.
defense? Is yet to be determined. Yeah, like it's too early in this season. I mean, yeah, you make a lot of not having preseason because look, NFL teams go undefeated in the preseason and they don't end up with a winning record, right? The good teams don't usually do that well in the preseason because they're trying to find new guys. They know what they have or what they already have established. So it can be deceiving in preseason, but I think it would, Neil Brown's been a big proponent of, hey, let's bring in like a Fairmont State for a week and practice so we can kind of get a gauge on what we're
All
doing.
for that.
So still don't know what, we feel comfortable that West Virginia has a good offense, right? We don't know what they have defensively. There's talent there. And Pitt's kind of in this, a lot of teams across the country are kind of outside of Georgia is kind of in the same boat. So you don't know what you're going to get. You do know what you're going to get because it's a rivalry game. These, rivalry games, you can pretty much throw the record books out, throw the stats out. It's going to be a dogfight. I don't think it will be a dogfight, but I'm sticking with my preseason prediction on that one. I'll save it for the later in the week, but yeah.
Yeah, I've like I said before the show, I my brain is telling me West Virginia wins this one with, I wouldn't say ease, but I feel like they find a way to win. Gut tells me this could be close. So yeah, I'm like you. I'll keep my score prediction zipped up in my back pocket for at least another day or so, and then we'll
If you
release
watch
it
any of
on
the
Thursday.
preseason shows, I think I made two pit predictions at the beginning of the year. It's pretty easy. I have not went away from that at all.
Yeah.
I feel pretty confident with West Virginia.
Yeah, so we'll see. We've got a lot of stuff coming out this week on the Backyard Brawl. Be sure to hit up our website to see all the stuff that we're throwing up there daily. A lot of articles on the game, feature stories talking about Rodney Gallagher going to being a two-way player. That's something we really haven't talked about much. Maybe we'll talk about it next week on the show and see how he does in this brawl. But that's going to do it for this episode of Between the Ears. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube page at West Virginia on SI. Follow us on X at SI_WVU. And be sure to check back with us tomorrow as Eugene and I break down the Backyard Brawl on the Walkthrough Game Day show. So for Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow on the Walkthrough Game Day show.